All right. Welcome everybody to Family Tree Maker Special Interest Group for May. We've got a kind of a small group today, but that's okay. We're going to talk about adding information in your tree. So the upcoming classes, I do want to spend a little bit more time than I did on ancestry with the Family Tree Maker Midwest tour that's coming through Des Moines that week. We are co-hosting a presentation with the Family Tree Maker Company for a presentation in Des Moines. And I included here on the Family Tree Maker handout a little bit more about the topics that they're covering as well as the registration link. We are not, IGS is not doing the registration. Family Tree Maker is managing that. So that'll take you to a link to their site. It's free for the afternoon. And I just wanted you guys to know what the topics were so that if you were interested in coming and spending some time with experts on Family Tree Maker, we are co-hosting that with them on June 16th. So, and that's, I've been in communication with trying to coordinate that with Mark. Mark Olson's the one that came and did that presentation once they released the 2024 version and did that walkthrough. He is there. If you watch any of the Ancestry Academy Family Tree Maker videos, several of those are presented by Duff Wilson. Duff was Ancestry's Family Tree Maker expert. He managed a lot of the code changes that were done after they sold Family Tree Maker to McKeeve. He relatively recently has joined McKeeve as kind of, I don't know what his title is, director of something. Anyway, he's been doing a lot of the conferences. He and Mark do those together to highlight what Family Tree Maker can do for you and kind of know all the ins and outs of all of that. And he has coordinated with the development teams in Ukraine. So he can kind of tell some of that story as well. So we're going to have the experts in town if you're interested in coming in person and viewing that. So with that, I will get started today. We're going to move into the people workspace. So let me share my screen. And I wanted to start with just letting you know where the resources are that I use to create the handouts and put together the programs. There's two places for those of you that are relatively new to us. We're using the Family Tree Maker Users Group on Facebook. They have a whole series of what they call guides, and they just walk you through the application, give you examples and screenshots. If you are a Mac user, I would highly recommend joining that group because one of the prime admins on that page that has written much of the guides is a Mac user, and so a lot of her examples are Mac versus Windows. That's true also in the companion guide. If you guys download the companion guide from within the application to the PDF, they will give you that Mac versus Windows support that I'm not in a position to provide to you. So just so that you know. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've already opened up Family Tree Maker on one of my trees here, and we're in the people workspace. It's this second tab over here. This is kind of what I set as my home page. You can set, we talked about this when we went into the plan and some of the options with doing settings, that you can tell it where you want to, every time you open your Family Tree Maker application in a tree where you want it to open. So I always open to this page and it opens to the last person that I was working on. So that kind of is that hint for me. But I just kind of want to walk through kind of an overview of this people workspace because we're going to spend 2 or 3 sessions kind of going into some of the details of all the features here. So if we get into a feature you're really excited about, go ahead and play with it. Don't wait for me, but you can absolutely do that. So this workspace is divided into 2 panels. This one is the tree tab, which is this view right here. And we're going to kind of do a deep dive in this panel. So this left panel is this index list. And you'll notice this is the default. Down at the bottom, you have this index is highlighted. So this is the view right here. Um, and there are some things that you can do to set it. So if yours doesn't look like mine, it's probably because you don't have it set up that way. So I have it set up to do, my sort is family name, then given name. That's this sort right here. But my
Wow,
columns,
Jen.
um, sorry, did you have a question? Okay. So if you had, there's two little menu options right here. So this first one, this left one, will open to this name index options. I'm going to move that up here. So you can decide, do you want your also known as to display in here? And you can see I have some of those. So like right here where it shows Janice, May, George, she went by Jan. So I am using over here on the left right panel the also known as value, and I've put Jan in there, and it will show use AKA if available after the middle name, and it will always put it in quotation marks. So if you see in the index, there are quotation marks if you've turned that on. Now, the other option to use the also known as is to make it a separate entry, which means you have two rows in the index for anybody that also has an AKA. Okay. You can use titles if they're available, if you're capturing those in the name field. And you can use the married names for females if you want to. I don't because I intentionally capture maiden names for married women. I have so many that were married two or three times that would they give me I don't know whether they would give me an index for each married name. I don't know. But that just confuses me. So I don't use it. So you can see I use this after the middle name if it's available. And you can see here this Irma Francis went by Francis. And you can see Jan here with these questions with the quotation marks. So that's the first one is how do you want the names to be displayed? Now this second one here is show additional information. And you can see I have checked the lifespan, the color coding, and the hints. So those three fields show up in my index view, and you could make it none, or if you're wanting to put in your family search IDs in this where space or death date or marriage date. But I find the lifespan serves me well because I've got several people with the same name. But if I know which one's the younger one or the older one, I can tell by looking at the date range from that perspective. So that's the ones I click on. And then I've got my colors, and you can see here where my primary person selected is Henry Wilbur George is highlighted in the index. He has a blue color, which I use for my paternal line. But you notice his dad has a blue and a green right up here, Josiah, right here. Josiah has a blue and a green, and I'm using a green to indicate my military families. So it's not complete. I just started doing that a year or so ago. But as I add their military facts onto their profile, I then add the military color. And there's some advantages to using those colors because now I have a filter set up for show me all the green colors. And we'll get to filters in a detail in a future session, but we'll touch on it a little bit today. So this is how you control this, what columns get displayed there. So you can see you have an option here on the name presentation. You can do family given name, family name. You can sort by birth date, marriage date, death date, and relative hints. So you can sort this index list any way you want, and you don't have to keep it always the same. So if I wanted to say, because every once in a while, somebody will ask me about Aunt Mary. And I'm like, okay, what was Aunt Mary's maiden name? And I might not remember it. So now I can come in here and I can do a search on Mary. And I can pretty quickly go, oh, yeah, that's right. She was a Doggett. And then I can find her, right? So I switch when I need to do that kind of a search within my tree for some of those first names that I may know the first name, but particularly for women, because I always store maiden name, I may not remember which couple Mary belongs to. So I do that periodically. I'll just flip it to first name and then do the search and find the person I want, and then I'm good to go. And then I just flip it back. And because I still have Mary in there, we're going to look for George Henry Wilbur, who's my demo guy today. Okay. So that's kind of what's going on in the top part of this, and you can set those however you want. Now, at the bottom down here, you can see there's an option. Now, my view in this panel is currently set to index. If I set it to bookmarks, you'll see Josiah right here has a little bookmark icon right there. So I'm going to click on bookmarks, and you're going to see I have two people. I have my grandma and I have Josiah. Now, I don't have them. I just clicked to show me the list of the bookmarked people. Now, if I click on George, or Josiah, he becomes my primary person here. If I click on Estella, she becomes my primary person right there. Now, you can decide how you want to use bookmarks. To be fair, I've set them up to demo this for today. But if you want to keep track of the 2 or 3 people that you're working on a real regular basis, you can just add a bookmark. Now, the add the bookmark is really simple. So I can click on Shelby, right click here, and I can add a bookmark. That's the right example in the handout. But if I go back to the index, I can pick William right here, and I can right click right in the index and say add a bookmark. So I can do it here, or I can do it over here. And that's how easy it is to add a bookmark. And then you can see once you've added a bookmark, let's go back to Josiah. If I wanted to remove it, I right click on him and see the add is grayed out because he already has a bookmark, but I can say delete the bookmark. So as you're working on people that you're wanting to keep track of within your tree, bookmarks is a good way to do that. So you might want to do that for a group of people that you're working on. Maybe you're trying to figure out how these people are all connected and you want to be able to remember them. You just set a bookmark and then you get this really short list, right? So that's the thing. The other thing that we have down here at the bottom, I'm going to just click at the bottom, is history. And this is who did you touch in the most recently? And you notice it's sorted in family name, given name, not in a date order. So it gives me, I've got 76 people that I've touched most recently in this list. So the alternative to a bookmark is to just jump into history and know what you went to last. Now, this is just a short list compared to the transaction list that we have in the plan. So in plan workspace, we have the change log. So this will give me in the date order all the things I've done to people in my tree, right? But it may not be the order I want to look at people, right? So I can still sort this list, this change log, to find, by date. I can put a date range in, or I can make changes or whatever I want to do to set, I can sort by people, or if I was playing around in media, I can sort by, we talked about this when we talked about the plan workspace. So the change log is always there for you to go back and look at. But when you're in your people view and you're trying to get some work done, if you really want to be quick, you can, oh yeah, that's right, I was working on, the cooks or the crosses or whatever. Now, this will be basically anybody that you've touched. So if you clicked on, see if I click on Anne Marie Scheller here, and I jump into bookmarks and I come back to history, she should now show up here. Well, I didn't make any changes, even though I went to her. So you got to do some playing around with it. But it does give you that quick look at what you've touched most recently. Okay. So if I go back to index, when I'm in the index mode here in this column, you'll notice down here at the bottom, we also have the filter views. So if I'm going to do filtering, I click on this filter and it will open up this option. Who do I want to work with? And it always highlights the person you've highlighted most recent. Okay. And if you want to change that, you can just search for them up here. And then you include them. Do you include all? Do you include their ancestors? Do you want to include their descendants? You filter them into here, and then down here, you can take some out. And then these are the filter criteria, okay? We're going to have a whole session on how to do filtering, but I wanted you to know why this is down here. So I've got some saved, so I'm going to go ahead, select a filter. So let's say I want to filter my military service, and you notice my filter is green. So I'm going to filter my military service. And these are the people in my tree that have the green color that lets me filter their military records. Now, you can change your filter and you can filter by a certain fact, condition. You can filter by certain relationships. There's just a lot of different ways to do filtering, and we're going to do a deep dive in how to do this. And you can see here that I have several that are I have saved the filter, so I don't have to rethink. One, I got it working the way I wanted it, and I don't have to rethink it. So that's kind of the cool thing. So I'm just going to say no filter, and I'm going to go back to my regular space here. All right. So that's the left column, and you can see that there is a little window here. I can close that column and make the middle section bigger. And then I can click that little tab and make it bigger again, bring it in. So you have total control on what this workspace looks like and how you want to use it. Okay, so I kind of leave it this way. These panels can be adjusted if you wanted them bigger or smaller. I kind of make them about like that. The same with the pedigree view, or what they call the tree view, and the family group view. If you've got 14 kids, maybe you want to pull that family up so you don't have to scroll the bottom part, right? So you can see all the kids. I tend to leave mine about here. Most of my families run in the 8 to 10 kid range, so this works good for me. And the same works for this right panel. You can change the spacing for the edit panel, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So working in the middle panel, this what they call the tree viewer panel, this little house will let you click to bring up whoever you've designated as your home person. So right now it's me. But if I go over here and I want my grandma to make, I can move her to the root position, which is right there, or I can set her as my home person. Now it didn't change it. I just made her the home person. You notice the little house became in her index record right there. So now if I click the home button, she becomes the home person in that view. That's what that home button does. Okay. And I want to go back. If I don't change it back. Now the plus side of the home person is now everybody's relationship that displays is their relationship to the home person. So just remember that I change people all the time into the home person temporarily, because I'll get a cousin that says, how am I related to Aunt Jane? Right? So I take the cousin and I make the cousin the home person, and then I go find Aunt Jane, and then it tells me right here how they're related. I don't have to overthink it. So that's just my personal cheat on that. So I can come down here. This is my dad. I'm going to go to his kids. my siblings. I can click on me right here in this child list and I can say, make me the home person. So now I'm the home person. And since I'm highlighted, it says I'm the home person. If I click on my dad, he's going to say my dad. Okay, so that's the home person. So we've talked about the add or delete this panel. We talked about, so now this is what they call the horizontal view. This is the pedigree view that my brain works with the best. I'm just telling you. But you have the option to go to this other view, the alternative pedigree view. And it will take a little bit to recalculate everything because it has to create the ancestors and the descendants because this is a tree view that does that. So this is the selected person, right, in this view, his wife, his kids, our spouses, our kids' kids. I can, from right here, I can go up to make Joseph the selected person. And then that changes the panel on the right. It brings him into this selected person in the index, but you can see I have this visibility into his siblings' generation and his cousin's generation, right? And 2 generations of ancestors. So I have his parents and his grandparents. Okay. This hurts my head most of the time. I just tell you. So I tend to leave it in the horizontal view because that's how I started and that makes the most sense to me most of the time. Okay. You do whatever works for you. So I can say include pictures where if I had, you can see the little picture icon went away and I can turn it back on, which I don't typically use pictures, profile pictures on my Family Tree Maker, but they would display right there and they will display right here. I can show you what that looks like because I have one of my great grandmothers as a picture. And so she has her picture that shows up here and then why that. Oh, I'm too far over. So I have to go. I'm going to make him root person. Because you see it only shows it for 3 generations there. Well, 4, yeah. And even though I have a picture for her, it doesn't really show here. I don't know why. Probably because I picked the wrong one. So you can see here's Louisa's picture shows here. And if I highlight her, her picture shows up here. So that's just the button. I leave it turned on all the time because I don't have that many pictures. And I don't mind the little profile men and women pictures here. So this one, you guys might be wondering, how did I get this blue background? Well, that's this button right here. I can pick what my background looks like. So you can change it. And this is tree specific. So if you have more than one tree, it will stick to that tree. So you can make the different backgrounds, whatever color you want. Okay. And then this little slider bar just says how many generations do I want to see displayed. And I just leave it always maxed out to the top because I use a great big 27-inch monitor. Okay. So there's that. And then the other thing you can see here, I can collapse down the family group page and make this bigger. And it will fill in the number of generations I have space for when I do that. This is part of the new Easy on the Eye. So that's this little arrow icon here. In each of these panels, Family Tree Maker with the 2024 version has added what they're calling Easy on the Eye, which expands this out and makes it a little bit bigger to see. So it closed the panel automatically. Now it's supposed to bring out as many generations as I can put on my tree, but I can't consistently get that to work. So, but one of the things, if you're like, this is the edit panel we're going to talk about next, or let's look at the index panel that we've already talked about. Easy on the eye is this little arrow here, and you notice it's a zoom. So if you're having trouble reading the font, even if you set set your options to large font, I can't tell the difference. So they've now added this ability with this easy on the eye to give you this zoom in feature, and it's panel by panel. So I can zoom in here. I think I can zoom in the edit panel at the same time. Nope, it's only one panel at a time. So you'll notice I had this one zoomed, and now I'm zooming this panel. So it closed that back to normal, and it opened up this one. But if this is where you're doing all your editing, if this is where you're adding all your information in, this easy on the eye is really nice to have. So that's what's available, and it's available in all 4 panels. We'll bring up our family group sheet thing here. And there's an easy on the eye here. And that zooms it in so that you can work on it or read it or whatever you want to do. And then if you still, you can still hold this over and see more of that field. You can close that index panel. And now you've got the whole page. So you have to do a little bit of maneuvering with the easy on the eye, but it's really helpful if you can't manage reading what you've got. So it's a little bit of a function of how big is your monitor or your laptop size, but this does let you zoom in, and it really does help. And then because I futzed with the panels, I'm going to bring that panel back. And I manually moved this one over, so I'm going to bring it back over here. Oh, that's a little wider than I normally have it. All right. So that's the tree viewer, view. So you can see more of your pedigree chart if you minimize the family group and do the easy on the eye. You're supposed to be able to get more generations, but you can see here I have 1, 2, 3, 4. If I lower this down, I now have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I close that one, did I get another one? No. So I'm supposed to be able to fill in as much space as I have. And that's going to be one of my questions on the Family Tree Maker tour is how do I get this to work right? Because I've had it work like once since I got the new version installed. But when you want to just grab a screenshot of this, this picture here, or you want to just print that, it's nice to be able to, print just as much as you possibly can. And so if I bring the family group back up and I bring the index panel back over, so just play around with, what works for you. How do you want yours to be set up? And if you don't use yours full screen, like I've got it right now, and you use it at some lesser, so if you do a little lesser size, it all works the same. It just uses whatever size you make the window. Okay. So that's kind of an important overview. So we talked about that. So I want to talk about this edit panel. They call this the edit panel. You can see that I probably have some fields that I collect on a regular basis that you don't. And this is managed by this button at the bottom that's called Custom View. And so you can see here that these are the fields I have up above, which is individual facts. And then down below, the shared facts, which is the marriage. So if I would add residence, I could, let's say I wanted to keep track of where they were living. I could look in this section down here. And these are my options to be moved into the shared facts. These are my options to be moved into the individual pieces. And then once you have them over here, you can move them up and down and set the order that you want to see them all the time. Again, this is saved by tree. So if you add all these fields to this tree and you have another tree and you open it up, and you're like, why isn't that field there? And it's because you didn't save it. So you have to do a custom view on each tree specifically. And we're going to have a special whole session on creating a custom fact. So you can create custom fact if you want and add it in here as well. So that's the overview for the people workspace. Does anybody have any questions? There is a way, Dean, to set all caps, and that's in the options. On Windows, it's in options. I have to think about this. Name, dates, and places tab. And there's an option right here. Use AKA. There is general. There is a way to set it. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. References. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to put my cursor in this name field and I'm going to go to help. And I'm going to go to help. And I'm going to go to search and surname. Convert surnames. There it is. So convert surnames will convert all of your surnames in the tree to either mixed case or capital case. And this is how you do it. It's under tools, convert names. So that's how you get to help. That will stay open. You can move it to another panel if you want to, but tools, convert names right here. And it'll nag you if you want to do a backup first, and then otherwise you can move it on over and just say no, continue without backing up. And then you have an option. Which name format do you want to use? And you can see that I'm not using that option, which I should because most of mine are set up that way. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes, because that's what I want. And I'm going to say okay. And it's going to go through the database and it's going to move them all to uppercase. And then how do you add or change the picture? You can just click on the person either here. Let's see. I don't think it's at the person level. I think it's up here. And add a new picture, edit the profile, or link to an existing picture. So you can use any picture that's in your database and or on your computer and pick it and put it in there. And I could say view the original and remove a profile picture. So yep, just click right there on their picture. Because you want to make sure you get the right person's picture, you know, as opposed to on Ancestry where they automatically put all kinds of weird stuff in the profile page. All right, just got those questions wrapped up. All right, so now we're going to talk about how do you enter information. So from this view, I want you to know that there's a way. So let's say I finally found Jacob's mom, this Jacob Jr.'s mom, or Jacob Dad's wife. I can click right there. And I can say test mom. And let's say her last name is, and I can say she's a female and I can say okay. And now she got added to the database. Just as easy as that. I'm going to detach her from that family group because I don't want her there. I'm going to say okay. And I will go find test mom Smith and remove her. So Smith test mom right there. And I'm going to delete her. So we're going to have a big session about how to do this too, but you want to detach someone from all the relationships they have. So she's out here as by herself. No direct relationship found to Sherry. So now that I've detached her, I can now delete her. So I'm going to delete her. Very sure. Yes. And it's going to take me back to the home person. And let's go back to Jacob. Down another generation so you can see this. So if I click on Jacob here, I can add a spouse right here in this panel, add a spouse, right? And it will add the spouse. So we're going to say test mom there. I'm going to say okay. Now you'll notice that she got added as the spouse in the family group, and she got added as the mom for Jacob, right? So if I go to Jacob, it's listing her as, oops, yeah, it's listing, oh, where did I go wrong here? So here's Jacob and Jacob. And if I look at this and I say detached person, you can see all of the relationships here. So it's saying, do I want to detach Jacob? Because I want Jacob. Do I want to detach Jacob from his spouse and his kids? No. But I want to detach him from this test mom. So I'm going to say okay. And now test mom is, I go back to Jacob. He doesn't have a spouse anymore. And I got to go to Smith, test mom. So because I detached her from the son, she's still attached to the husband, quote unquote. So now I'm going to detach her from the spouse. See, so you can come at this from whichever way. Just take a deep breath when you do this and make sure that you're detaching what you want to detach. And now she's free floating again. And so now I can delete her. Delete person. And I'm sure yes. So you could do this adding and subtracting on the people. So if I go to, I can say, I want to edit this person. I want to delete this person from here. But if I go, let's go back to an empty panel here. If I want to add a parent, I can add them here. Or I can close that. I can highlight this person and I can, edit however way I want. So for now, if I add a father, see how it's changed that label? If I click on this person here, I don't get an option because it's not connected. But if I click on, let's click on Jacob here, you can see I've got an add a mother, add a father, add a mother, add a father, right? But if I click on this person, I still can add a mother and a father, but now I can add a spouse down here. And if I click in the add a spouse space, I get the same option. This person is a parent to the current child listed, yes or no. So if this is a second spouse, because I haven't found the first spouse yet, I can uncheck that and then the relationship to the child doesn't happen. Okay, so that's if you use this space here. Close that. If I do it here, I don't get that option on the child. I just get to add the spouse. And that can kind of sometimes mess up the children relationships. So I just want you to know. Now, you might be wondering, why is there this little folder here? If the person I'm adding as the Johann's spouse is already in my tree, I can just click on this and go find that person and link to the other person. So let's say he marries the sister of his first wife. His first wife passes away, and he marries her sister, who you already have in the tree. Then you can come in here and just search for them and make the connection, right? And then you just click on them and then you connect them. So that you notice that's kind of around almost all of these options. If I say add a mother, if I finally figured out that Uriah's wife is his brother's mother-in-law, who I already have in the tree, I can just look her up and just connect the link. Okay. So that's the kind of reason why they put that everywhere that you see it, is that you get to see that. Use what you have already in your tree kind of an option. Okay. So that's the way, we kind of worked through this pretty hurriedly. So add a fact. Let's see. We talked about parents. Now, if you want to add a second spouse, you can click on this little spouse thing here and add a spouse, right? Now, I have an unknown spouse here because I don't know who's the mother of Mary. I'm too far back in my tree and I don't know. I haven't done that research on that line yet. So that's one of the things that you can do. If I'm down here, no, I don't want to do that. If I'm on Rudolph and he would to be married again, I could just add a spouse, or I can add a spouse here. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say one of these guys had a second spouse. So I have Mariana, who you notice I have set as preferred with my asterisk. Set spouse order is an option here once you get them all added. You can set spouse order, that click that little box and it'll bring this up and it'll let me mark. Maybe I want to switch and make this the preferred spouse. I get that option. But maybe the preferred spouse is the second one. Like if they had married in this order, I would put them chronologically, but that's me, and make the second spouse the preferred. That wasn't what actually happened, but you can set which order they apply, and you can set which one is the preferred. Okay. All right. Any questions? Let's see. Now there's another way. We haven't gone over to the person tab, but there is another way to add people, and that's on the person tab. And part of the reason for that is on the person tab. It's whining because I've added and deleted people and I've added and deleted people, and it's trying to keep track of all of that for me. So on the person tab, I can do the same thing here. I can right click, and this is my picture piece. I can add up here. I can click on add a father, mother, spouse, child, or an unrelated person. So an unrelated person, maybe you want to add the neighbor. Maybe you want to add the preacher, maybe the witness on the marriage. I mean, you can add other people into your tree if you want to. The other thing is that you'll notice you get this little mini pedigree chart up here and you realize, oh, I didn't want him. I want to look at somebody else. And you can just open up the index of people and let's pick Walter down. Let's pick Walter down here and say, okay. And while I'm still in the people tab, it will bring Walter to the selected person and I can work on Walter's person page. Okay. And I can add people while I'm on this view as well. Okay. Any questions so far? I know it gets really kind of whiz through this because I hope I've got the documentation in the handout so that you can follow. You figure out which way you like to add people. I do tend to use these boxes here as being open for one, to make sure I get the right relationship. And I tend to add kids in this family group space is where I tend to add, because right here I can add a child. It will default to, if I say Sue, you notice it defaults to the dad's surname as the name of the child. The unknown is the default, so if you know the gender, you can set it there. Okay. And then what happens when you add this child is this edit panel will open up for you to fill in their details. So if you add a child down here, it will open this up so that if you now have their birth date or their baptismal date or whatever information you have, you can just start adding it all while you're in this view right here. Okay. The other thing, let's see. All right. There's a couple of things that I want to show you here with Rudolph because this is setting children's order. You can set this to be set the children in the birth order. Okay. There's a setting generally that you would have the whole tree be that way, but you can do it for this person, right? This group right here. So if you've keyed them in the order you found them, if they're not in the birth order, you can just click this right here to say, sort all children by birth, sort the children in this family, sort the children in all families. It's also available in the tools menu, so you can tell you there. And then you can sort the current family without prompting this in the future. So I can turn this off for this family in the future. So you can see I get all those sort options available. So the other option is if you've got multiple spouses and the spouses brought children to the marriage, right? So let's take a look here at Rudolph's Marianne Schneeberger. And you notice she has two spouses. So she's married with two kids. If I go to Johann Schoen, that's her kids. If I go back to Rudolph, I'm still showing her kids, right? But now this little thing here lets me show all the children because they did all grow up in the same house together. And what you get to see here is which parent brought them to the relationship. So I've got both parents here because Rudolph adopted the girls. So he adopted Anna and he adopted Emma, but they didn't change their name. They were still, I've kept their birth name with them. So I've got them sorted by children, all the children sorted by date, but now I'm showing the other children that would have grown up in the household because you notice that Rudolph and Marianne got married in 96. Anna was little. Emma was really small. So Rudolph helped raise those girls. Okay. And so I've set them to be stepchildren of Rudolph. But I can turn that on and turn that off. So, and if I turn this back to Marianne Horn, which is where I'm related, this little yellow arrow, it says, this is my line. This is the path to get to the home person me. It's the yellow line. So even though the blue arrows indicate that I have information about the marriages and descendants of those children. Okay. So that's what that nomenclature means there. So marriage facts. I can jump into here really quickly and see what my marriage facts are. And then I have sources and I have notes and all kinds of fun stuff there. That's this extra little button here. Okay. Now, if you're like me and you've got people that have special characters in their names, you can do this in the edit panel. So go to the edit panel. Let's see that. And we don't do this very often. Oh, I have to click on the pencil. So in the edit panel, we don't have, let's see. The edit, I'm supposed to have pencils here. Yes, this out. Well, this isn't helping us see this very well. Go here. There we go. So in this name, if I use this pencil, you can see here that I can insert a symbol. So let's say that she was an A with a tilde on it. I can insert that, and then I can close it. And now I've added that tilde letter at the end. Okay. It's not intuitive. You know, guys notice that. But this is the built-in Family Tree Maker way to insert the symbol. And I've given you the steps from the Facebook guidebook that says how to access your operating system's special characters. If you do that a lot in Word or other tools that you use the Windows character map or the Mac character map, that will work here as well. I just don't do it, so I didn't want to demo that for you. So we talked about, okay. So we've got this is my stock set of facts that I generally collect when I start adding people. If I go to the person page, you can see that my default here is facts. This is my fact view. And I can add more facts, which is where I normally add my military. I come into here, I go down to military service, and I say, okay. And it creates for me a military service line here, and it gives me the fact options that I have right here. Right, so then I can fill in whatever information it's designed as a date and a place and a description. And I can attach my sources or my media to that if I want to. If I want to remove that fact, I just highlight it over here and right click, and I can say, delete the fact. Are you sure? Yes. Because Mary Ann didn't serve. So, you can add as many all the facts that you want can be added into this view right here. Now you'll notice that I have two birth facts that are tied to, this one is from Find a Grave in Ancestry, and this is one that I just entered in, and you can see it shows that I've got some person notes down here for this person as well. And then I have different death date facts that I haven't really cleaned up. So my little counts here are sources and notes in media. And you can see I have, even though this one is set to preferred because it was the first one I added, this one now has sources on it. And this one has a different name because that was what I found in the obituary. Okay, so I went ahead and saved that. You notice I don't have any notes about that, but I just know. And then I use the burial fact typically for Find a Grave so that I can put down where the cemetery is. I put the cemetery in the, usually in the description. So let's go back over here to my tree view because I put it here. So this is the place. I usually go ahead and put it in the place if I know which cemetery she was buried in, because then I can use this when we get to places. I can then get a list of everybody that's attached to a particular location that I named a cemetery, but that's a future class. Okay. You can see that you can highlight each of these facts. You can see what information, your sources, your media, your notes that you have on these people, right? But if you look at their timeline, This puts it in a timeline view for you, which you can print out. There's an option in timeline. There's a little drop down here, and you can turn on historical facts. Family Tree Maker has a historical facts database. Okay. And it will insert, this will give you that overview of what did your ancestor see or live through from a world history perspective, right? So it's highlighted here. This was where Marianne was born. And then it said she would have been alive during the Crimean War. She would have been alive for the Civil War, Emancipation Proclamation. You could see by the time she got married, Europe was in the Franco-Prussian War. Then there's the New Zealand women's suffrage. So there's a lot of stuff that went on in her lifetime. You decide if you want to include that in her story, if you want to include that just to get yourself put into current events frame of mind. And then there's a relationship view in this person thing. So this is really lists the father, the spouse, and the children. And so this is where this relationship view is where you can change the relationships. So you can see here, her dad is set as her biological and defined as by default as preferred. If I come down to spouse, I updated this because Family Tree Maker with 2024 will automatically move this to deceased once a new person's death date is added or a new person is added, and then you add a marriage, it will set it to ongoing. And then if one of them dies, it will change it to deceased. But if they're already in your tree, you have to do this manually. So you can see here, you have lots of status options: divorced, none, ongoing, other. The same with you have with spouse relationships. But if you've got people, like I have people that are parents but never got married, or they are partners that never got married, you've got some options here on what you want to call them. Now, there are some glitches in the reports that will still call them a spouse because they have children. And there's been some ongoing, it's a known bug, but you can, in your view, set the relationship that you want. Okay. The same with children. So you can see I've got biological children here for him and Marianne. If I change this to, I have to go. So if I go to Rudolph, who has 2 marriages, now you can see I have Marianne, the spouse with his biological kids, and you can see Marianne the second. He adopted them. I had them set as step. And so not adopted, but stepchildren, because he helped raise them, which is why when they show them as a mixed family, he has a relationship with those girls rather than none. So unknown or whatever. And then if I go to Marianne Horn, yeah, it goes back. So a lot of people like to work in this space instead of on the tree view page where they can jump back and forth into timelines and facts, and they can see everything that's there for them that they have on file for them. I find it a little confusing, so I use the other one, but it's your choice, right? So let's say that I've got a fact here that I want to move to. Okay. And we've talked about adding more facts. Okay, we talked about that. So there is a function within Family Tree Maker that you can copy and paste facts between people. These guys are not a good example. So let me do this. I'm going to military service. I'm using my military service feature And I'm going to go to Nehemiah. And we're going to go to people. And let's say I want to copy his military service to his dad. So I can right click that fact and I can say copy. And then I go to his dad and I come in here and I say paste. And it tells me I'm going to copy from Nehemiah, the Reverend, and I can pick all these people in this family grouping who I want to add this fact to. So it doesn't matter that it's a military fact. If I let's say I'd added a census record and I didn't get all the families in, I could come in and add the residence fact and spread it across everybody in the group. You just click on them and um, then decide. So let's say I'm going to give it to his father, which isn't really true because he died before the Revolutionary War, but I'm just going to add it there and I'm going to say, okay. I go to his dad, go to John Porter, the lieutenant, and it shows that fact has been added. Now I'm going to delete that because it's not accurate. But you can take a fact that you've already done the work on and copy it across people in the tree. You cannot copy a fact from one tree to another tree. That doesn't work. Okay. But you can save yourself all that data entry with not having to, re-enter all of that stuff for just doing it that way. We talked about preferred. Let's spend a little time here on color coding. Notice that in the person view, the color coding option doesn't show up. It only shows up over here in the tree view. And you can decide how you want your coloring to go. So you can pick a palette and you can decide if you want just a color, and do you want to include the ancestors' descendants, because I'm in an ancestor of me, and do I want to include their descendants or not? So I'm gonna do that because I've already got colors in here. This takes a little bit of practice to get comfortable with where these colors go. Just feel comfortable that you can put them in and you can take them out. You'll notice that these top two rows are single colors, and these bottom rows give you 4 colors, and it's that whole parents, maternal and paternal parents all get a separate color kind of a thing. So I just want you to know that it's available. It is a little tricky, and I hope I've given you all of the rules around that in the handout, because it takes a little bit of practice. And I turned them on and turned them off and took them out and put them in, and I played around with it. So mine start with me because what I did was I did my paternal line as all blue, both sides. And you can see I did maternal line all pink. So I did the male, female, traditional blue and red. And that works for me. And you know that I've added green for my military. So that's kind of what you can do. And you can see I get both colors on me. My military people all have at least a green. I've got a couple people that aren't direct related to me. So this is my Uncle Bill by marriage, and this is a cousin who I know had service, and so I went ahead and added them in. You can see it's the husband of the half great aunt of mine, 5th times back. So not a direct relationship to me. He married into the family. So that's kind of why I do that. All right. We've already talked about the blended families and the sorting. I'm just kind of walking down through the handout to make sure I've covered everything. We've talked about the relationships. We've talked about the statuses, additional spouses. We've talked about that. I've demoed the detaching and the, yep, adding a person. I didn't show you that, we have the add a person in the box, add a person over here, but there's also this person tab here. So add a person, detach, attach, detach. So you can see that you have some more people tools over here. Find and merge duplicate people. You can edit, find duplicate people. Yeah, I'm just gonna have you look at them up. If I knew I had duplicate people and I was going to work on them, I would make a backup. But this is going to go through and match people. We talked about timelines. And at the bottom, let's see how long this takes. Pest Mom Smith is probably causing him some problems. Even though I added her and took her out, there's pointers still in there until I compact the database. And so it will have to analyze those and work through them. Okay. Dean, your question about colors, while that's finishing, is you just have to make a little cheat list. Once you assign someone a color, there's no, it populates to the people, but there's no legend. So you have to kind of make a little 3x5 card or make a note, which, I would have done it under, so here's what I would have done. I would have gone to plan workspace and tasks. And down here under low priority is where I create a general task, the information that I use for reference. So I would go ahead and add a new task and I would call it colors used in tree. And I would describe how I assigned them and then I would make it low. So it always falls in this low category down here and I would save it. That's what I would do. If I were going to, especially if I was going to get really creative with it, was I would make that note right in Family Tree Maker so that you've got a place that you could go to really quickly and find that information. Okay, so and Stacy gave you guys the tips on the Mac on how to do the special characters. All right, so I think we got that question answered. Great support, Stacy. So I got my so I minimized my tree and here's my find duplicate. Here's my help from before. So I'm going to go ahead and close that window. And these are the duplicates and you can see here, I'm going to move this up a little bit. It thinks that these two people are different, the same person. And so while I'm looking at these two people, I can go to that person from right here. I don't have to, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to go to that person in the tree. Well, my tree's not open. That's why it's not doing it. All right. Gotta get there we go. Gotta get this back over here. So Louis G, they think is the same person as Louis G. So you can see I have two in my index right here. They have the same date range. So I'm currently sitting on this one that has no spouse and no kids, son of this couple. If I click on the other one, I can see that I have a spouse. But if I click on this one, he's just sitting there by himself, and I have data. So what I'm going to do, and this is, you really want to do a backup before you start this, but you can compare and merge. So what it's going to do is, because I've looked at the two of them, I can compare and merge, and it's going to give me side by side what person one has and what person two has. So I can see their name, I can see and I can make a choice here on the facts. So it's saying this birth fact is marked as preferred and this is set to discard, but I could make it an alternate if I wanted to. I can see this death fact has a cemetery record here. So I'm going to keep this one, right? And I'm going to discard this second death fact. And then this one, I have a burial fact as well for this one. So for this one person, I can say, okay, and it's going to merge them together and remove the other one. So you can see I kept the preferred one. Let me cancel this for a second here. I'm going to look at, is this my preferred one? Is this my preferred one? Yeah, this is my preferred one because I have the cemeteries here. So now if I go to this, I can compare. So this is really my preferred one because it also has the spouse. And so there's some, some ways that you could work through switching them so that you merge the right people to the right people. And that comes up under here under person, merge two specific people. So then instead of using the duplicate people option, I'm using the person merge two people. So I'm not going to do a backup. I'm going to continue without backing up. And I'm going to say, this is my preferred person with the spouse. And I'm going to merge him with this person. And I'm going to say, okay. Now I get to compare with, you see how it switched them? It took my preferred person with the preferred facts and compared it to the other person. And now I'm going to say, okay. And now I only have the one with the spouse and the cemetery. So that's a duplicate persons option. And you can do it that way or do them. I tend to do them this way with the person merge with the duplicate because while I've got them both here in the index side by side, I can look at the two different profiles and figure out, oh, I want to go that way instead of going this way. And we'll have another whole session on merging people. So this isn't the only place you're going to see it. You're going to see it again later. And then I just want to wrap up today with I gave you some overview information about notes because we have a whole session that we're going to dedicate to notes because there are like 9 places in Family Tree Maker where you can create a note. So let's talk about what those look like. You can see them from here. You can see that up here this is my facts, my media, and this is my notes. If I click on that, it would display my notes for that person. I don't have any for this person. So let me think about who would be a good one to go to. So here is my great-grandfather. And you can see when on this view, on the tree view, I can click notes and it says I have 2. I have a person note and I have a burial note. Well, the easier way to see this is if I go to the person page and I look at the facts. So here's my person notes down here. Person notes will sync to Ancestry. Notes on Ancestry are private. So even if you have notes in here and they go up to Ancestry, nobody can see them unless you've shared your tree with someone with editor privileges. And that's a whole nother story. So we'll talk about that later. You also have in this same panel research notes. So this can be where you want to make, some people use this. I have seen this done really successfully to capture what you might put in a research log. They create their research notes tied to the person in their family tree maker. This is also where you can assign tasks for this person that will show up in the plan task list. Okay. But as you would highlight any fact, you'll notice that your sources show up, your media shows up, and you can write a note. So in this case, Charles has personal notes. He has his person notes. Notes, research person notes. So he has person notes. And he had what? Burial notes. So here's my burial record. And what I copy in my burial record is the information from Find a Grave. So I've copied the little header from Find a Grave, and I copied what was also shared, or I transcribed what was shared on Find a Grave. And here was someone had put the obituary on his profile. So I put it on the burial fact because I got it when I got the information from Find a Grave. So I tie that note to my source here on my notes page. And so when I go back to my tree, it will list the type of note and the information that I have. Okay. Now we have fact notes. We've covered the person notes. We've covered the research notes. We've covered the fact notes. We go back to the person tab on relationships. There is a note. So you pick the person that has a relationship, and here's a note. So if you wanted to say, my grandparent, now like in my case, I should put my mom and dad's how they met story on their page, because they met. My mom was working at a Dairy Queen in Marshalltown, and my dad rode up on his motorcycle, and that's how they met. And they've been back to visit several times together. So, but you can see I don't use the relationship notes. The kind of to the question that was asked earlier is how do you know how you use the colors? You might want to make a legend for how you're going to use notes, because you don't have to use them all. And it's nice to be consistent. So I always use the burial fact for my Find a Grave information and for obituary information. I always use the person notes for those general stories rather than maybe a relationship notes. And the other place that there's a notes, so there's a notes on the relationship, and there's a notes here on web links. And there's a note here. Oh, that's relationship notes. Web links, new. It's not exactly a note, but it's a link, it's something else that can be used. There are, when we get to the media workspace, I can go to media. I don't have any media here. If you go to media, any media that you have can have a note. So here's a transcription note that I made for that census record. I don't do that consistently, so it's not always there, but there is on the media itself, you can add a note. And you can see here, just add a note, and just click and type, and it just gets added to the media note. The same thing happens with sources. Sources can have a note. So if there, again, here's the notes. So if this is a source that maybe you found in a book at a particular library and you wanted to make a note about it, or someone told you a story about it, it could be a summary rather than a transcription of the information in that citation. You're just going to want to make a note about it. They can be set to private. Most of them, you see this little lock on all of them when you get into the note tab. If it's grayed off, you can turn it on or turn it off. If it's off like this, it's not private. If it's clicked, it's private. It's just shaded, so it's just highlighted, as opposed to an open lock and a closed lock. So that's how you make a note private. And that works on all notes across the system. But we're going to have a whole nother session about notes. I just wanted you to know that when you're adding information into your tree, you have these options and you just need to kind of think about how do you want to proceed with that. Okay. Any other questions about this workspace? There's a lot going on here in the people workspace. So I wanted to spend some time and give you that overview of how this all navigates and how it works. It might help you find a way that works better for you. If you, want to make your family group page a little smaller, you want to make your pedigree chart a little bigger, all of that kind of stuff. Any other questions? Go ahead and open your mics and shout out if you want to. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces. There we go. I hope this was helpful. Sometimes it's just good to have a review of how all this stuff works. And it might be, I do it a different way and you're like, oh, I'm going to try that. Or you're doing something different and you want to share it. Or as you go home and work on it and try it, be sure to bring that back into the group and share what you're learning and what you found that works for you. And I hope you think about joining the Family Tree Maker Midwest Tour. There is a limitation on the number of seats. We can only set the conference center up for 100. Mark is quite confident that we are going to fill it up based on his experience he's done in the past. They've done this down the West Coast. They've done some through the mountain region. So he has a list of people they are going to invite, as well as we will send it out to all of our people. Probably on e-news is where you're going to see it. But just know that you guys are the first to see that announcement that's coming out from IGS. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question about the people that you were deleting, when you sync that to Ancestry, does it delete it in Ancestry too?
If they were already in Ancestry, yes, it would delete them from Ancestry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to keep a list or anything to.
No, well, it's best practice is do all your changes on either Ancestry or on Family Tree Maker. I don't make a lot of changes that I worry about that. That and the fact that I sync to a completely separate tree than my working tree. So I tend to not worry about that. But best practice is make all your changes on one side. It will sync. I mean, changes on either side will sync both ways. That you can't say, okay, I made these changes in Family Tree Maker, put them up to Ancestry. But if you've done things on your tree and Ancestry that's connected to that tree in Family Tree Maker, they will come down to your Family Tree Maker. So you just have to be careful. And we have a whole session about syncing and all of that. But yeah, if you delete on one side, it will delete on the other side.
Thank you. I do have a comment. Every time I come to these sessions, I find something that I need to clean up.
Oh, isn't that always the truth? That's one reason why I try to do the cleanup as I go, because if I make notes and then I set the notes aside, sometimes I don't get back to it right away. And I've done enough playing around in this tree and while we're gonna sit in here, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do a compact my file and do a backup because I've just done enough moving around and that tends to slow Family Tree Maker down. And so I just always before I close do that compact and backup, and it just keeps me feeling more safe because I know my stuff's in a clean spot. All right. Well, there's still a little bit of daylight left. I know we noticed last night it was still light outside at 8 o'clock. Not bright light, dusk, but our days are getting longer, so we've got time to enjoy the nice weather. So with that, I will let you guys go. Enjoy your evening. And I will see you in June, if not before.
Thanks, Sherry.
Have
Thanks, Sherry.